Hello, and welcome to Lone Wolf. Previously, I discussed lone wolves in nature and wolf behavior in the wolf pack, specifically related to lone wolves, breaking down some of the myths and ideas and preconceptions that we've had. And this video is an opportunity to explore how lone wolves in nature serve as a metaphor for humans. I discovered the more I learn about wolves, the more I see real similarities between wolf culture and human culture. The concept of lone wolves is what intrigued me most. And the more I've learned specifically about lone wolves, the more similarities I saw between lone wolves in nature and humans like myself. This is my effort to unpack those similarities, to give more of a foundation both to the name of this project and the purpose of this ideology and philosophy here at Lone Wolf. I discussed the concept of lone wolves being very rare in nature. And like lone wolves in nature, human lone wolves are extremely rare and unusual. As such, it can be easy to feel alone. And when you're in a group like ours that is rare, there's understandably fewer resources and supports in the world than for, say, more conventional or orthodox or normal humans. So, for better or for worse, I just know this is how I'm built. We are the kinds of people who dance to a different drummer, and the lone wolf metaphor has helped me see that as a good thing, as a positive thing instead of bad. And I hope that it can do the same for others, which may be part of my purpose here. I discussed how lone wolves, contrary to popular misconceptions, actually do crave the pack just as much as every wolf. In a similar way, we human lone wolves crave community. Community is healthy. Human culture, whether we want to admit it or not, is just as stratified as wolf culture, perhaps more so. And admittedly, it's so ingrained in all of us, we don't even know how we are constantly vying and competing for power and status. And there are some of us, generally for good people, good men, but specifically for lone wolves like me, power and status are not as valuable to us as peace and cohesion. So we'll tend to sacrifice those things, our power and our status, to a fault in order to help facilitate cohesion. In a sense, we tend to become the omega of our communities, similar to the omega wolf of wolf packs, who, in order to keep the peace in the pack, in order to diffuse tension, often prostrate themselves and allow the pack to abuse them and take out frustration and competition on omega wolves. As for bad people in society, unfortunately, their values, core values, place power and status above everything else, including their own integrity, which they will sacrifice in order to gain more power and status and wealth. So, that means they'll do anything to acquire it and maintain it. It's time to make more good people the alphas of the world and return good people to positions of power and status. But this project is not about alphas or omegas or status. This is merely context I'm giving to why, like wolves, some humans like myself struggle to fit in. We don't want to be omegas and let the world just run over us. We also don't want to be bad people in a world where it sometimes feels like you almost have to be a bad person to acquire and maintain any semblance of power and status and wealth in this modern society. So we either learn to belong without fitting in or being understood or accepted and just accept that that's our lot in life. And that's our experience as lone wolves in communities that will essentially never be accepted and certainly will never fit in. We don't really want to. Or we strike out on our own. Lone wolves, ultimately, in this quest to eventually find a community or another person with whom we connect better, we'll strike out on our own. And while there are other gifts of this walkabout, you might call it, including learning and experiencing new things, we would ultimately be left empty trying to avoid community, regardless of how introverted we might be or how ruggedly, stubbornly independent we might claim to be. We all need community, and that's essential. That is our ultimate goal, is to eventually either find or create a community in which we feel supported and with which we are compatible. This doesn't have to be limited to creating a family, though it often does take that shape. Community can take many forms, but even amongst the most introverted of us, we all have a healthy desire for community to some degree. There's really no sense in denying it. And we will travel the earth to find our community, much as a wolf will trot hundreds of miles in their quest for another pack. A lone wolf human has a fascinating drive for travel. I'll speak for myself. There is certainly a visceral desire to travel, to see other parts of the world, meet diverse people, and connect with and learn about different cultures, which I do feel stems from this very healthy, natural desire for community. I imagine that's what fuels our innate and sometimes uncommon desire to travel. It's a hard journey. Traveling is not easy, certainly not cheap, but it's a worthy one, and one for which very select few are built. And I believe we are among that select few as lone wolves. Like wolves, humans who feel like lone wolves are extremely critical and important to human society in similar ways that I discussed about how lone wolves are important to wolf health. Beyond just genetic diversity, there's a cross-cultural and international cooperation that have proven to heavily rely on those like us willing to travel and engage in different countries and cultures and bridge gaps of cultural and experiential dissonance in ways the average person either couldn't or just wouldn't want to. And in so doing, I would consider these the unsung heroes, these lone wolves that are often driven not necessarily directly by the desire to help facilitate intercultural harmony, but more from their own innate hunger to connect to cultures which might more resonate with their own hearts. This is how we churn a melting pot of ideas and possibilities and opportunities that would otherwise go stale and untouched and undiscovered. We create a flow of human potential and culture that would otherwise become culturally stagnant and even toxic. We value quality over quantity when it comes to connections, especially the introverted like myself, who prefer to invest our energy in small, higher quality relationships, amount of relationships, rather than a vast number of superficial relationships. Just valuing depth over breadth, essentially. I say all this because we're often told the introverts and lone wolves of the world are not healthy, are not good for the world. And we're made out, both explicitly and implicitly, to be bad and wrong for humanity due to our tendency by those within the comfortable folds of societal acceptance to criticize us. So it's important that I use this opportunity here to combat those stereotypes and prejudices against lone wolves like us. For our own sake, we must know our worth. Not to give us a big head, on the contrary. If you're like me, you may have spent much of your life wondering if people aren't correct in a world where that's all you hear is that if you're not an extroverted, charming, good-looking, power-hungry man, then you really have no worth or value. And if you're not gregarious and fun and open to everyone, that something's wrong, you're a creep, you're weird, you're unusual, and you get ostracized and pushed out of practically every sphere in your life, it's easy to start to wonder if people might be right. Maybe I am bad for society. But I hope that what I've shared here about how lone wolves are critical for humanity and can do things no one else can and are extremely rare, those who have never known our pain, frustration, and struggle of being alienated don't get a voice or a vote in determining our worth. They have no context to understand our experience as lone wolves. So we must trust our hearts and know that our paths are just going to look different than the average person's. And people are scared of what they don't understand. Our big hearts frighten people. Our unusual tendencies don't make sense to people who have never gone through what we've gone through. They have the experiential dissonance that doesn't allow them to even understand where we're coming from. We also have to understand, on top of that, that there's just not going to be many resources out there for us renegades and lone wolves, which is one of the reasons I felt compelled to create this project and to start Lone Wolf. Thank you for taking time to let me unpack how lone wolves can be a metaphor for humans and why I've chosen Lone Wolf as the name and the common theme of this project. I hope this helps give some deeper insight into my use of the lone wolf metaphor, and even more, I hope it gives some confidence and inspiration for those lone wolves who might have often felt like they are bad or wrong just for being who we are, as I used to. Being a lone wolf, being unusual, being a renegade is something we should celebrate, own, and cherish, and step into and embrace. I'm learning to embrace that side of myself, and I can tell you that it's a much better experience than trying to fit in or deny parts of myself, of my heart, that in order to fit in. We lone wolves are the proud few whose rugged paths will continue to lead humanity, kicking and screaming, if we have to, into happiness, health, possibilities, abundance, peace, cooperation, opportunities, and so many more good things. And I believe that we are critical to that, especially as rare as lone wolves are. And I think that's a much better, healthier view of lone wolves than we are often given by society. So in my next video, I will discuss the meaning of life. Thank you.